Mr. Mani comes with over 30 years of experience in organizations like Microsoft, Nokia, and Whirlpool. As a consultant, of course, you continue to support various manufacturing organizations in their talent journeys. And Mani, as I said, very happy to have you today here with us for this conversation. Let me kind of jump into the first question and let's get this going. So, with the whole industry 4.0 and smart manufacturing trends that we see, how do you see the talent landscape in manufacturing? And what do you think will need to be done from a talent perspective for organizations to adapt to these changes that are happening?
Yeah, thanks. I guess among the buzzwords that are around, you used quite a few of them, and then there's maybe one or two that are left behind. You talked about Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing, and then there's always this AI and ML, and there's always, and then of course the digital twin and whatnot. So there are multiple things that are going on. Now, when I look at the talent portion of it, so what happens is that in most scenarios, except for a few institutions or few people with specific backgrounds, you find that most people are unequipped to handle this kind of the latest buzzwords, let us just say, the technology that is there, more in terms of automation, more in terms of improved productivity, etc., etc. And not only that, it's also a scenario where people find it challenging to even accept these concepts. They are more used to what one finds on the floor when you go across to different companies. And as you rightly said, while I had the privilege of working with some very fantastic companies like Whirlpool and Nokia, at the same time, and now as a consultant, when I go across to multiple organizations in different sectors, I find that people are looking at doing the job. They're not looking at building a career. They're not looking at fulfilling the ambitions that they might possibly had at some point in life. Now that's become more a job. You need to come, you need to do what has been asked of you to do and keep walking out. Now, from that standpoint, the challenge that comes up is as you introduce such fantastic tech into the system, the comprehending the tech is one, working with the tech is another, and also in terms of being able to assimilate it, adapt to it, and make it even better than what it is and build on it. That is the element that I find is becoming challenging. Now, as a person, I personally believe that every individual has the ability in himself or herself to be able to take things up and go forward, build some great things. But unfortunately, many circumstances, and it's also a lot of ways in which they've been brought up. And when I'm saying brought up, I don't mean their personal side. I'm also talking about how they've been brought up in their careers till a certain point in time. It's always there's this boundaries that have been drawn around people, and they kind of stick to their boundaries. They've been asked to do X, they do X. Now, what happens if you take one step outside? Now they're scared, like as if somebody asked Lakshman to step out, right? So it's like that, that's a kind of challenge that people are facing. Now, how does an organization understand this and know who can be worked with and who can be nurtured, who can be built on, and how do you build on people? So now, to find such people, it's not that you can go into any kind of just go into the market and find all the people that you want, and it may not be an actual fit. So how do you also identify talent inside and outside the organization and bring the talent in? And at the same time, organizations should also consider another aspect, which technology is an enabler. And don't mistake me when I say this. Now, is the level of technology that you're talking about? AI is becoming the word for everything, like which toothbrush should I use? I ask AI. That's the way it has become. Now, is it actually needed for your organization? What is it that you need, and what is it that you need at which location in your organization, for which purpose in your organization? I think that those are questions that an organization needs to also answer first. Then identify the right people who can kind of work on it, bring it in, and build on. That, again, it goes back into in my opinion, goes back into the fundamental cultural DNA of the organization. And without that, we can talk about many things, but nothing. You can kind of take the horse to the water is the scenario that you face in the industry. I'm not really sure if I answered your question because if I kind of went around a bit. So if there's something specific that you would like me to touch upon, just let me know and I try and do what I can do.
No, it's interesting because, like you're saying, people look at AI as kind of an panacea for all ills. This is something that's going to take care of everything that's going wrong, and that it's going to actually enhance everything that is going on. And maybe they're not applying just the judgment that they need to, which you spoke about, which is that, where are the places that AI can actually help me? And AI can actually augment the work that I'm doing rather than hindering it. Or, do I really need AI to recommend a toothbrush? Or can I use AI to maybe help me do something that can change the way I work, can enhance the processes that I use or the systems that I have? And therefore, if I look at the people that I'm using and the people that I'm working with, who exactly do I need to then, enhance? Whose talent do I need to really work with? And who are those people that I need to train and develop?
Yeah, on that count, Shaila, I'll also add that, see, we always, when it comes to people, we always talk about human dynamics, we talk about change management, we talk about all of those things. Now, AI is today's buzzword, but are we, I mean, you can always argue that AI can give you the solution to a challenge that you face, but are you ready to apply it there? Or is that a curve? Is that a curve in, just as in a change management curve in terms of human behavior, it is also a curve here in terms of technology adaptation within an organization. Is my team ready for the tech adaptation that I'm wanting them to do? First, of course, is the question as to what's the purpose? Is this the right tool for the purpose? Then comes the answer that, yes, it is the right tool. It is a good tool. We would like to put it there, but am I even ready for it? Is my organization even ready for it? How do I build my organization? And again, it goes back to the fundamental foundations of the values and everything to say, how do I bring the organization up to speed? Most organizations, again, I keep saying that I go to multiple factories and companies and whatnot in my operational excellence. I tend to coach than consult. But what happens is that in most organizations, you're still working on archaic, not even Excels. You walk into an organization, you are aghast in today's world that they are having registers, somebody is drawing lines with a ruler and noting down data. And look at their output, look at their turnover. There are some really large companies, and we're talking about thousands of crores of turnover in whatever sector they are in. So we're not talking about small companies, but unfortunately, and for many, many reasons, and I guess thankfully those are the reasons why somebody like me gets to go there. So you see that level, and I'm talking about an extreme level. Most of them are still at an Excel level. They don't know why they are taking the data in. They put the data in, somebody then comes and says, like, do A, do B, and then they go about doing it, and that's about all. And here I'm not talking about operators on the shop floor. Here I'm talking about the so-called engineers. And as a country, we throw out millions of engineers into the field every year. And even them at that level are only capable of being, I would even say to an extent, being a little brutal about it, being robotic. Now, how are we making them, how do you get them ready for something called as an AI? If that is your tool. I think that is key, and that is key for every organization to understand where you are, your current state, and figure out your path to there. Is it a 2-year journey, or is it a 2-month journey, or is it a 5-year journey? I don't know. It depends on where you are. But at the same time, it is absolutely important to go through that journey. Yes, in 5 years, AI would have surpassed and it would have gone to the moon, maybe, or to the Mars. But
probably, yeah.
But then, yes, you are playing a catch-up game. You are playing a catch-up game. Accept it, or there may be very brutal answers. Otherwise, we can. I don't want to talk about those things.
Fair enough. And that brings me to my next question. So one of the trends we have observed in the last 2 years is that organizations who've not traditionally invested in talent, they are scaling up their manufacturing talent by investment in learning programs and for both technical as well as behavioral skills. Some companies are doing it, others may not be. What would be your advice to companies who are looking to invest in manufacturing talent in terms of how and what?
I guess I answered part of it earlier, right? See, what's happening today, and which is very natural, is that we have not looked at technology as much as we should have looked at it, right? So there's so much to be done. So in the
Yeah.
meanwhile, what's happening is you've been doing things very in a very traditional way. Yet now you suddenly, in many cases, you will find from the board level or from depending on the kind of ownership, even promoter level, whatever, you find a new generation taking over. And when they take
Mm.
over, they
Mm.
want everything in place now. And the
Yeah.
easiest way to bring things into place now is to call a bunch of consulting firms, whoever is capable, and I'm talking technology consulting firms, to whoever is capable, come and put in
Mm.
your product in here and make it do A to
Mm.
B. Sorry about that. Trust me, the consulting firms don't know your company, they don't know your
Mm.
operations, they don't know your production. And unless and until a consulting firm understands fully and adapts their product to your situation,
Mm.
it's not going to work. And even then, who's going to operate it is your team, your
Right.
people. Now, who are your people? Again, going back to the question, are they
Mm.
even ready?
Mm.
Are they even ready to for what you're bringing? So then, how do you? So again, I think the fundamental answer goes back to building a culture. Building see, people are around. There are tons and tons of people around, thankfully, in this country. But how many of the people are having the basic inquisitiveness, basic curiosity, and the initiative taking capability
Mm.
to understand what's being said and to,
Mm.
again, going back to assimilate and build on that fact? That is a few. Now, sorry, I'm going to say something which may not sound good, but then today I find stickiness is more found in Chinese rice than in people to companies.
Well.
If people move out like in months, if somebody stays for a year, you're like lucky. So forget about learning curve in terms of months. It's like in
Mm.
matter of hours is what everybody expects, and the smallest of reasons people are ready to move across. Now, I guess in some ways, companies also should start looking at how do you actually bring in so-called talent. You're not bringing in talent, you're bringing in people at that stage. When
Mm.
you're bringing in
Mm.
people, you're bringing in people who you believe. In a brief interview, I made an assessment saying that they have some talent, they have some capability. Now,
Right.
you need to possibly have additional. I mean, I look at it more as an investment. With some of the companies that I work with, we've been following this model, and I'm sure there are many companies following this model for donkeys. Yes, I'm saying it may be new in my ways, but then we hire definitely far more than what we need. Okay?
Mm.
And in a few
Yeah.
months, things become far too obvious. And we are when somebody when like you today, if you look at human capital, it's become more like commodity. Jobs are becoming like commodity. So if we are talking about if when on both sides, we need to start looking at it, saying that okay, you want to leave in a few months, somebody wants to leave, that's fair enough. We are ready to accept it. But then what we don't want is who we see as talent to move away. So how do you nurture that
Mm.
talent? And of course, I don't need to tell folks like you as to how to nurture talent. It is different for different people. Somebody is run by money, somebody has certain other learnings in mind, somebody has a career in mind. So even there are enormous in many factors that come in place. So from that standpoint, I think it's important to find out, call out the few that are worth spending the effort on, worth nurturing, and then take them forward. And that works. I mean, one of these companies that I'm working with, there's this guy who's a data entry operator, a
Mm-hmm.
data entry guy. Okay. It so happens that some of the most critical data of the company passes through his system. He works on it,
Mm.
he gets the
Mm.
data, he puts them together, etc. And then the beauty of it is that every often and now he comes to me with insights. He's saying, "Look at this, sir. Look at that. Look at this. This is how it is. That's how it is."
Mm.
Now, in the company's hierarchy, he is a data entry operator, but I think he is the linchpin in the company, and you
Mm.
need to make
Right.
sure that that guy is nurtured. I'm not saying which way. It depends on the company, depends on the
Mm.
individual, but
Mm.
please nurture the person. Please make sure that the person is with you, because what he brings to you on the value on the table that he brings in
Mm.
is immense. And
Of
it is
course.
not just not just in terms of money, it is in terms of how you can even strategize and take the company ahead. So that is critical. And unless that kind of capability is in people today, any amount of technology is not going to help. Yes, AI is going to help making decisions, etc. But that is dependent on what has happened earlier. It's dependent on what it has learned. Now, how do you look at future? How do you look forward? How do you see what is the information that is coming through? How the processes that are working? How does that help you when you want to move forward? That is something which possibly today only a human mind is doing. We're not yet ready for the AI to do it. I may be a little behind in my learning of what an AI can do, but then from that perspective, I think that kind of talent, that kind of interpretation, understanding, decision making, and ability to provide direction to the company is extremely important. Again,
that's interesting. No, that's absolutely interesting, because I think at some point we talk about human creativity and we talk about the fact that AI is possibly not something that can, at this point at least, replace human creativity, or can replace the way that a person can, say, visualize something or draw insights from something, or even just to take the word, create something. If you talk about artists, if you talk about the way that someone visualizes the world. So I think a good note to close the conversation at. Mani, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today.
thank you, Shaila. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's always a pleasure.